In Week 1, Deshaun Watson's crumbling football career reached a new low. In the Browns' 33-17 loss to the Cowboys, Watson averaged a career-low 3.8 yards per pass attempt and posted a passer rating of 51.1, the second lowest of his career. At this point, the electric, efficient passer who Watson was in his early years as a pro seems like a distant memory. His play as of late makes it easy to forget how great he was before everything began to fall apart. In the 3 years before Watson's season-long holdout in 2021, he was 6th among qualifying quarterbacks in expected points added, or EPA per play. If you aren't familiar with EPA, I'll leave a link in the description to an article that explains how the stat works, but basically it's a measure of a team or player's performance over expectation. The only quarterbacks who recorded a better average EPA per play during that time period were Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, and Phillip Rivers. By the conclusion of the 2020 season, Watson was on a Hall of Fame trajectory. That year, Houston went 4-12, but Watson was one of the most efficient passers in the league, ranking first among qualifiers in yards per attempt, third in completion percentage, second in passer rating, and fourth in total EPA. He had an MVP caliber season while throwing to Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and Randall Cobb. But after that 2020 season, Watson wanted out, and around the time of the trade request, the allegations began to surface. Without diving too far into the off-the-field issues, Watson was accused of sexual misconduct by over 20 women. He was cleared of criminal charges by a grand jury and maintains that he was wrongfully accused, but he settled the civil lawsuits and served an 11-game suspension after he was traded to the Browns. If you want to know more about Watson's legal issues, there's a great article by Aaron Reese published in The Athletic that outlines the timeline of events regarding Watson's off-the-field issues, which will be linked in the description. Despite the allegations, Cleveland decided to send a massive haul to Houston for Watson in March of 2022. Houston's return included 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a fourth-round pick, which either directly or indirectly led to the following acquisitions for the Texans. First-round offensive lineman Kenyon Green, second-round wide receiver John Mechie, third-round linebacker Christian Harris, fourth-round running back Dameon Pierce, first-round defensive lineman Will Anderson, third-round wide receiver Tank Dell, second-round defensive back Kamari Lassiter, and third-round defensive back Kalen Bullock, among a few others. The picks Houston received for Watson ultimately led to the acquisition of 5 current starters and 4 key depth players. But that's not even what makes this the worst trade in league history. As part of the trade, Watson also had to agree to a new contract, the reason for his holdout in the first place. So Cleveland gave him a 5-year, fully guaranteed $230 million deal, the first of its kind at the time. NFL owners were infuriated with the Browns because of the precedent it set for future quarterback deals, such as that of Lamar Jackson, who requested a trade during negotiations with the Ravens seeking a deal similar to Watson's. The fully guaranteed aspect of the contract makes it almost impossible for the Browns to get out of it. According to OverTheCap.com, his cap hit this year is only $28 million because of an offseason restructure. But that money didn't just disappear. Watson's cap hit for 2025 and 2026 are now set to be just under $73 million each year, which will require the Browns to restructure again. But they did so the first time out of hope that Watson would return to form and that they could extend him to further backload the contract and keep the cap hit low. But Watson isn't returning to form. He's not even close. And the Browns can't get out of the deal without an astronomical dead cap hit that would make it impossible to field a team. That is, unless the new allegation against Watson that came out this week leads to discipline from the league and was not disclosed to the Browns in writing when he signed the deal. This is another really complicated issue that I'll leave to the journalists and cap experts, with a couple links in the description to articles that explain the implications of Watson's new legal issues better than I could. On the football side of things, assuming Watson is the Browns starter for the foreseeable future, the outlook is bleak. Nothing was working in Week 1 for the Browns. Watson couldn't even capitalize on the most favorable looks a pro offense can get. Here, Cleveland went empty from 12 personnel, which forced the defense to telegraph their coverage call. The Browns sent the running back out wide up top and one of the 2 tight ends out wide to the bottom. The running back was followed by a linebacker and the tight end by a safety. That's a dead giveaway for man coverage, and this single high safety shell makes this as clear of a cover 1 look as you're going to get. Against man, Watson likes the inbreaker from Elijah Moore coming from the bottom half of your screen, and there's a ton of separation when Moore breaks. All Watson has to do is lay this out in front of his receiver to generate an explosive play, but he leaves it low and behind, which brought up a 3rd and 9 that the Browns did not convert. Watson also constantly locked onto receivers running long developing routes who just weren't open. Take this play from the third quarter as an example. Cleveland called a two-man deep shot concept off of play action, which calls for a swirl route from Jerry Jeudy up top and a skinny post route from Amari Cooper at the bottom with checkdowns underneath. Post-snap, the Cowboys drop into a soft cover 3, which takes this post route away completely. Cooper is essentially bracketed by the wide corner Trayvon Diggs from the outside and by the post safety Malik Hooker from the inside. Nothing about this post-snap look suggests that Cooper is going to separate. It's second down. The checkdowns are coming open, but instead of just dumping it off to set up 3rd and short, Watson takes an unnecessary shot that could have been intercepted. Watson attempted 7 throws of 20 or more air yards in this game, which was the most of any quarterback in week 1, but he didn't complete a single one of them. That doesn't tell the full story because Amari Cooper should have had the one in garbage time and Watson was under constant pressure in this game, often preventing him from reaching his checkdowns. But forcing the ball downfield without any sort of calculation makes for bad football. By the second half, the Cowboys defense expected Watson to just lock onto his first read. I mean, look at Trayvon Diggs on this play from early in the 3rd quarter. Dallas is in a 3-deep fire zone blitz, which tells Diggs to drop into a deep third on the sideline with his eyes on the quarterback. When Watson turns to the field side after taking the snap, Diggs knows that Watson can't make it to the boundary side of the progression, so he pretty much takes the play off as Watson overthrows Amari Cooper on a go route. The tackles were bad and the receivers could have been better, but Watson wasn't thrown to the wolves by Cleveland's defensive staff. The coaches tried to mask those issues. Moving the pocket, for example, can delay the pass rush to give the quarterback a little bit of extra time, which it did on this play from early in the 3rd quarter. Cleveland called a play action concept that pulled the center to the left side of the protection scheme and moved the pocket to Watson's left. Downfield, the Browns have a clear out route from Amari Cooper, a comeback after the motion from Elijah Moore, and a backside dig from Jerry Jeudy. Elijah Moore's motion brings the boundary side safety down, which gives away the Cowboys' 3-deep call. The post safety gets depth as Watson drops back, which should tell him that the backside dig is going to be wide open over the middle. But Watson completely disregards the coverage rotation in favor of his checkdown before even reaching the depth of his dropback. He feels the slightest bit of pressure from Micah Parsons and immediately drops his eyes to look for his running back. This is not sustainable quarterback play in the NFL. Coaches aren't always going to be able to put their passer in a favorable situation. Plays that get receivers this wide open are few and far between for most teams. So when they're there, Watson needs to capitalize. When he doesn't capitalize, the coaches are forced to continue to do everything they can to make things easy on him, which is a slippery slope that can create opportunities for the defense. Because their offensive line struggled to contain Dallas's defensive line, the Browns were forced into quick game concepts that get the ball out of the quarterback's hands before the pass rush can get home. One way to take the pressure off the quarterback on such concepts is by calling them out of empty sets that spread everybody out. They often force the defense to show their hand, like Dallas did on that first play I showed you. The back was sent out wide and was followed by a linebacker, giving the cover 1 call away. But there are drawbacks to calling a lot of plays out of empty, and Dallas made Cleveland pay for one of them later in the first half. It's second down, and Cleveland gets a zone ID with the running back out wide at the bottom matched up with a corner, but it's tough to tell whether or not there's a blitz coming pre-snap. Because Cleveland's backfield is empty, there are only 5 in protection, and Watson tells the offensive line to half slide to the left because that's where the blitz is most likely to come from. The defensive backs are in off coverage, so the only likely blitzers here are the 2 off-ball linebackers, both of whom are lined up to the left of the center. Dallas called a 3-deep fire zone blitz here, which tells Eric Kendricks to rush, and Kendricks has been around long enough to know that he can manipulate this 5-man protection call. So just before the snap, he moves from the left side of the center to the right. Now the right tackle has to pick up the blitz because he needs to take the inside-most threat, which leaves Micah Parsons unblocked off the edge and the center blocking nobody. Even though it might look like the offensive line screwed up by leaving one of the league's best pass rushers unblocked, there isn't a missed assignment here. The line executed the call correctly. It was just a great play by Kendricks to get Parsons in free. Watson got the ball off to the quick outbreaker in time, but Parsons got up to tip it, and Kendricks was rewarded for his pre-snap work with an interception. Watson didn't do anything horribly wrong here, but the reason why I wanted to show you this play is because the issue is that the Browns use things like empty formations to mask Watson's weaknesses. But in masking Watson's weaknesses, they become vulnerable in other ways. Empty sets are quarterback friendly because they make for vanilla coverage looks, but they also limit the offense to 5-man protection and, in turn, mostly quick game concepts. If Watson was performing like a league average quarterback, the Browns wouldn't need to lean so heavily on empty sets, which is where both of his interceptions against Dallas came from. Last year, while Watson was injured, a 39-year-old Joe Flacco got off the couch and led this offense at a much higher level than Watson ever has. Flacco wasn't perfect, but he didn't need to be for the Browns to win games because the roster is so good. The Cowboys' defense is going to be one of the best in football this year, so things should get better from here. But as long as Watson is starting, this team isn't a threat in the AFC, and they should be. The receivers can separate, the offensive line is great when they're healthy, they've got a Hall of Famer on the defensive line, but their quarterback is a liability. There has to be a better option. Cleveland's staff has already set the franchise back years by giving Watson this insane deal, but it's not too late for them to admit their mistake and do something different. It's what they have to do to make the most out of this really talented roster. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can check out my Patreon and Twitter, both of which will be linked in the description. I will be back within 48 hours or so with the first edition of what I hope will turn into a new series on the channel called Top 10 Throws of the Week. So be on the lookout for that. But that's all I've got for now, so until next time, take care.